So I want to talk about what happens when we grow up with rules like these. I've quoted Virginia Satir saying 96% of families are dysfunctional. People say, isn't that, did you say that? No, I didn't say that. I think they're all dysfunctional to some degree. We all come out of the same set of rules. So how can we not be? And I don't care about formal logic. All the birds could be flying in the wrong direction. That's possible. That is possible. So we want to look at what happens when a child is abused. I want to read you something from David Muir. That abuse is not natural, he says. That it does not appear spontaneously without contact or instruction from others. This means, of course, that the person involved with abuse could have been taught other behavior, that there are options which have been denied that person, and because of the narrowness and the one-dimensional quality of the world of abuse, I will argue that abuse represents a loss of knowledge about oneself and of the world and a loss of freedom. See, that is what I argued in the family series, that children are wounded because children don't know what normal is. How would you know what normal parenting is? All you know is what is told you as normal parenting. And then when the pain is so great, you move out of the pain because it's too hard to stay in yourself when you're in that pain, and then you forget. And all children idealize their parents. You can't not do it. I couldn't have called a meeting and said with my little bags packed, Dad, you're an alcoholic, Mom, you're a co-alcoholic, I'm moving down the street. I couldn't do that. I had to idealize them and make them okay and me bad. That's what children do. So the abuse lasts a lifetime. That's what we're understanding. And because the defenses that we develop are so powerful, they become automatic and unconscious, and by the time you get to be an adult, you forget. You forget what happened. See, and the most dramatic example of that is incest, where, working with a woman in her 60s, she's suddenly starting to get to memories of her incest. That's not uncommon. So in the most extreme forms of abuse, sexual abuse, we know that people can forget for 50 years. They can go 50 years without remembering this stuff. And so we've got to get it that the truth of our childhood is enormously important to us. We better find out the truth of our childhood because the child will remember. What children need more than anything, they need a model. Here's how to be a man. Here's how to be a woman. Here's how to be a human being. Here's how to interact. Here's how to be intimate. So you have trouble identifying your feelings. You don't know what you feel because nobody modeled feelings for you. How could you name a feeling if nobody ever named it for you? Sometimes people think it's crazy when they've grown up without this, when they hear therapists saying, you say to the child, I see you're feeling angry, when they're obviously stomping around the kitchen. But it's enormously important. How would I know how to name? I'm going to talk a little later on about abuse. Children don't know what abuse is. Children don't even know they're being abused. How could they know it? All they know is what's happening to them. I just want to focus for 1 second on adolescence, because adolescence is a kind of coming together of all those childhood stages. It's a time of great kind of vulnerability, a lot of pain in adolescence, because that's when you really first start noticing, the whole sexual thing. There's a kind of sensitivity. So I talk about adolescence as the in-between age, so it's the tween age, but it's really the bridge to adulthood, and it's about identity. It's kind of the really establishing of an identity that's based on our childhood foundation. Suppose you hit adolescence and you have never gotten a sense of trust, you have a lot of toxic shame, you have a lot of toxic guilt, and you have inferiority. Now, what kind of an identity is this adolescent going to have? He's going to start developing a negative identity. Like when I hit adolescence, all my shadow side came out. I was this good, wonderful boy that the nuns loved, and I had press in the neighborhood because I was such a good kid. I hit adolescence, man, I found all these guys from broken homes. We were in brothels at 13. drinking. I had alcoholic blackouts by the time I was 15. See, I went into all this negative identity or counter-identity. See, a way to have an identity is be different than all these squares. You know, to be a rebel, to be reactive, not to be, I remember we used to sit there and drink and talk about all these funky people, that had jobs and were respectable and all this kind of stuff. Now, toward the end of adolescence, though, I'm still a wounded child. So how am I going to find an identity? Well, in my system, I had been a star and a caretaker. So guess what? At 21, I go to be a priest. Here's a way to solve all the problems. Here's a way to solve it all. This is the way that I can establish an identity. But do you see that it isn't really an identity? It's part of this false self, good guy, people-pleasing, caretaking act that I had been in all my life. Because you see, as a child, every child is trying to figure out, how do I matter here? How do I matter in this family? Well, the way I mattered was by being a caretaker. The way I mattered at school was by being the president of every class, and I won medals. And so by becoming an achiever on graduation night, I won all these medals, a standing ovation. I was a raving alcoholic at 18. But you see, in our culture, we love super achievers. We pay performers a lot of money. We pay first grade teachers almost nothing.